There are many Egyptian deities who were connected with protection and magic, and that's because their creeds were connected with magic. The revering and cult of many gods was based on the characteristics and magical powers of these gods. This means that most of the Egyptian deities played a role in magic and protection of the living and the dead. Yet, the role of some gods gave them advantages more than the other gods in magic. Among the most famous protective deities that are connected with magic are the two goddesses Isis and Nephthys, who were given the title of Werti Hekau, or the Great Ones in magic. Goddess Wajet was also given that title, for she had relation with magic just like Isis. In addition to both deities Isis and Nephthys, we find that the two goddesses Serket and Neith were considered protective deities, and their representation came on the four corners of the coffin, for they were connected with protection. Goddess Sekhmet was connected with magic in her lioness form, for her harm was feared. Spells and prayers were composed to push away her evil and turn it into the good image of Goddess Bastet. The priests of Waib were known by the name the priests of Sekhmet, and they were the most of the priests who worked in magic. Goddess Hekat was also considered a protective goddess and was pictured holding the key of life or the Ankh symbol, and she protects the pregnant mother and the newborn baby too. Goddess Taweret shared that characteristic with her, and she's a female hippo, and she was a protective of the pregnant women and the infants. Sometimes the ancient Egyptian would merge some deities to ensure the highest level of protection, for since the end of the New Kingdom, God Horus and Bes merged, and some magical texts that joined between them merged too, and were known as the magical palettes of Horus. The evil eye in ancient Egypt's mythology was known as the evil eye of Apophis. Apophis was a snake which endangered the sunboat and was mentioned in the coffin's texts. The Apophis snake had already chosen the point of weakness in the sunboat during its sailing in the west in sunset, and that's in order to attack the sunboat and the sun god. The text says, "I know the mountain of Baro, the one over which the sky rests, and Sobek the god of Baro, who exists in the east of the mountain. And on top of that mountain there is a snake that reaches 30 arms, and 3 arms stick out of his upper part. It was cut out of the flint stone." He also adds, "I know the name of that snake. He is the one who resides above the mountain of Niala. This is his name. In night time he turned his eye against Ra, and the result was that the sailors froze for a minute, and there was a big disturbance in sailing." Here, Set turned against him and told him these magical words, "I'm standing against you, so that sailing can return back to its normal course." This text goes back to the Middle Kingdom, and there were signs of it in the magical texts of the Middle and New Kingdom, which are connected with the role of the evil eye of Apophis. The red color was one of the colors that was connected with pessimism for the ancient Egyptian, which drove the writers not to write the symbols that refer to the snake or the crocodile in that color, and they preferred to write them in black in order to avoid the evilness of their pessimism and in order not to provoke these animals. It's also possible that the Egyptian was afraid to gaze into the evil eye when he reads the writings in that color. In addition, the red color could be used to send away the pessimistic creatures, and that's why some amulets were made of the jasper red stone. The evil eye was something that the ancient Egyptian feared the most, for it can handicap his entire life and affect his destiny to a great level. In the prayers, usually the deities were asked to protect someone from the evil eye. In the rituals of the divine oracle, we find a request of protection from one of the gods from every evil eye. Goddess Sekhmet was mentioned on one of the palettes as being the one who sends away the evil eye. Among the important amulets that stand against the evil eye, we read, "The arrow of Sekhmet is inside you, and the magic of Heka and Jehuti are inside your body. Isis is insulting you, and Nephthys is punishing you, and the arrow of Horus is in your head. They work against you more and more. You're the one who stands in the hell of Horus, the one existing in Shenwet. The god who lives in the house of life blinds your eyes, and you, Apophis, you'll be destroyed. You'll die, and you will not live forever." This text shows that, in spite that Apophis represents the grand position of the evil eye, yet any human can also send an evil look. There were some rituals known to expel and send away the evil eye of Apophis, and they were pictured over the walls of some temples since the New Kingdom era and until the Greek-Roman period. In them, the king usually kicks a ball in front of one of the goddesses, and that ball represents the eye of Apophis. That ritual is known as the ritual of kicking the ball. The evil eye of Apophis was connected specially with Apophis in particular and with the snake in general, including its advantages and dangerous characteristics, but it was also related to the gods and the giants and the people. Till today, in the culture of modern Egypt and in the East in general, the evil eye exists, and people need protection from it by wearing an eye or a hand with open fingers and a blue stone in its middle as a pendant. God Set was on top of the lists of the gods and devils and giants who were feared by the ancient Egyptian. To be protected from the evilness of his eye, some rituals and magical hymns had to be recited. Among these magical forms, a text that says, "May the ritualized god Kherib, who follows Goddess Serket, rise and read these books in a loud voice, written to close the throat of any reptile and also to cleanse the garden and the front yard." The spread of the magical formulae related to expel the evil eye became wider during the Ptolemaic period. They were kept inside the books of the libraries that were attached to temples. Some types of ointments and makeup were used in performing some practical rituals in the magic rituals, and that's according to what came in the magical papyri that talk about these rituals, especially the Demotic papyri in the Ptolemaic ages. Amongst these papyri are the Leiden and London papyri. All what had occupied the mind of the ancient Egyptian, and us too, is how to stop the effect of this evil eye, and what needed to be told of spells, or what could be done of rituals for that. We can try to comprehend the way to terminate the bad effect of the evil eye on someone by reading the text that says, "Catch the thief who stole, and every time you hit the eye with a stick, the eye of the thief will be hit and swell and shows who he is. This text refers to the hitting of the eye of Ujat and performs some practical healing. And that's according to what was mentioned in the magical papyri of London and Leiden that concerns the separation between a man and his wife. It was also possible to use the evil eye in black magic, and that's according to what was mentioned in the magical papyri of London and Leiden that concerns the separation between a man and his wife. It's clear that there is nothing new under the sun, and that today's magic all over the world was basically derived and transported from ancient Egypt. The amulet of the Ujat eye was called Iret, which is a female name. The word Ujat means the fine, intact, unbroken one. It represents the good health and the safety and protection. It was connected with many Egyptian gods and legends. The Ujat eye is the eye of god Horus that was lost in the events of his struggle with Set. It was cured with the help of Jehuti. The sun and the moon were called the two eyes of Horus, the right and the left. In one of the battles that happened between the two gods Set and Horus, Set caught Horus and took off his left eye and tore it apart. It was a symbol of the moon that lights at night. By that, the night became dark until it was treated and put back in its place by Jehuti. There was a pointing out to the return of the eye in the papyrus of the Ramesseum, and Jehuti says in it, "I brought you your eye, it will not be separated from you again." The Ujat eye gained its sanctity and symbolism from the Egyptian legends too, for in the events of the Osiris legend, one of the stories points that Set stole the eye of Osiris, but Horus managed to get it back to his father in Jahesti in El Delta. The legend pointed that Horus presented his eye to his father to see with it, and thus the eye was used as a symbolic legend, for it was directly connected with light and the ability to see and understand. In addition to the eye of Horus, the Ujat was connected with many other gods like Ra, Ma'at, Atum, and Sekhmet. The Ujat was used as an amulet in a wide range, for it's considered the amulet mostly used ever. It appeared since the beginning of the Old Kingdom and continued throughout the old historical ages. There were many forms of amulets and the materials they were made of in ancient Egypt. The purposes and goals for which they were made varied too. There is no doubt that the ancient Egyptians paid a great attention to the amulets and their manufacture. They were associated with protection, for usually they were made to gain protection through the symbolism lying in the amulet. Amulets were used for the purpose of protection from the evil eye and for the purpose of giving its bearer better health. They were also used to push and erase pain that might hit a human. This would require telling some spells and words over the amulets so that it could be effective, and it may coincide with practical rituals in the magical texts. In ancient Egypt, the amulets used for the purpose of protection and for magical purposes were very common. Amongst them are the amulets of the Ujat eye, and the symbol of Sa, and the knot of Isis the Tat, and the amulets of several deities. We could say that the idea of using amulets for the purpose of protection or for magical purposes are still inherited in the Egyptian popular culture till today, especially amongst the levels of the non-educated, in the villages and rural areas, and amongst those who seek the magicians and impostors. There are many spells that were told against the dead in the medical texts. Usually, the evil and the dangerous dead were pushed away from the children by hanging amulets in the shape of fish around the neck of the child. For fish was used in the magical and medical texts for the purpose of pushing away the dangerous dead. One of the medical texts mentions some advices, like that the fish abjou was cooked after its mouth was filled with incense. Then it was eaten before sleep, so the ghosts could be sent away. The magical stick in ancient Egypt was known by several names, like the magical ivory, the hunting stick, the magical stick, and the magical knife. It's a symbolic tool that had a magical protection and takes several crescent shapes. Usually, its length was a bit more than 50 centimeters. Usually, it was made of the bottom jaw of the hippo, but some others were made of wood or porcelain. The surface was divided into two parts. On its face, some giants and gods were pictured, and on the back, writings. The gods and the giants pictured upon it are characterized with the roles of protection and magical power. It's the same purpose of picturing them doing some useful acts to whom these amulets were dedicated, and that's through the equivalence in mythology between the worlds of the gods and humans. We can specify the event to which the materialistic use of these magical pieces were given through the text or the drawings. Usually, this event is described in the magical context that says, a specific person was bitten just like Horus was bitten in the desert. That formula comes within the oral ritual and is usually followed by practical guidings that ought to be executed, and that's what's known as the practical ritual. Alton Mueller thought that these magical sticks or knives go back to the Middle Kingdom, and he had found in some of the tombs of the Middle Kingdom models of sticks and knives, but he had also found magical figures inside tombs that date back to the pre-Middle Kingdom or the New Kingdom. Upon these sticks, some imaginative gods were pictured besides some figures that are related to the cult of the sun. The texts around it are all about protection. Amongst them is a text that says, "We came to protect Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so."
رمضان أهلا